Hey, Chris, it's Tuesday.
All day long, Jay. It's Tuesday, first Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Yes,
I
hope you
know.
had a great Thanksgiving. Hope
Same to
everyone
you.
out there watching had a great Thanksgiving.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. My poor 49ers, their playoff dreams are history. Probably, but that's not true for those of you that are watching today or listening today. So welcome to the Practice Playbook, the show where we help firm owners and wannabe firm owners navigate the road for their modern firms. I am Chris Geno, just like it says right down there, and he is Jay Kimelman, which it says down there.
Yes.
Um,
Did a little bit of
and
work
we're here
this
too.
weekend.
Yeah, right. We're here to guide you on your journey, as you head toward your real life playoffs. Unlike the 49ers swamp. Last week, like we mentioned, it was Thanksgiving, so we gave thanks for all the great things that are out there for accountants and otherwise. We praised advances in technology. We gave a high five to our teammates and our clients for all of the support that they give us. And we even shouted out new tax rules. And of course, we're always thankful for our remote environment. All right, this week we're coming to the end of the year, so we want to talk a little bit about planning and getting ready for that end of the year. And we'll highlight a few things that we think you should focus on as we get to that end of the year. And then we'll even use some things that we're working on the High Rock team to remind you of, refresh you about, and all of the things that go along with heading into 2025 as successful as you can be. But before we do all that, let's get to the news. Now, with it being Thanksgiving last week, the news is relatively light. There wasn't quite as much news as there normally was. There was lots and lots of news out of the UK, but that didn't really feel all that relevant. I don't know that most people care that gov.uk used and added in an AI bot. But at the same time, that did make the news later. But UK Gap got a little update. But again, I don't know that people really care all that much about UK Gap. Here stateside. We'll first talk about a couple things that are happening on the tax side. The first one is, to no one's surprise, it seems as though the IRS could lose up to $20 billion in funding, which, Jay, if you want to take a rant and tell the world about why that's a bad idea, you're welcome to do so. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that
I
feels right.
mean, there is so much good being done right now by the IRS, and well, let me rephrase that. The investments are being used wisely. They're building
Right.
tools, they're building infrastructure. They are not arming the agents to go after you.
They're
Right
not.
now it's all about getting access to the agents to help solve problems. It's getting access to that tax account, the pro account that we can access. I mean, some of these things that they built in the last 2 years have been amazing and great time savers. So I can't say enough about it. But this is not the right time to pull that funding. But you know, the IRS could, well, let me stop right there. The Treasury could go the way of, we're expecting the Education Department to go. I mean, they could wipe it out. We don't know. But, I don't see it happening because
Yeah.
how
Somebody's going to
are
collect
how is the
money.
government going to pay Social Security? How are they going to pay the bills? How are they going to pay Donald J. Trump and Elon Musk so they can get their funds? Because
Mm,
Lord knows, I mean, so we're going to have a treasury one way or another. So that's not going
yeah.
away. But I think it's a mistake to defund the IRS. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked for weeks and weeks and weeks about all of the different positive things that the funding of the IRS can do, both for taxpayers as they continue to take feedback from the taxpayer advocate and all of that stuff, but also for tax professionals. There, especially as we were heading into deadlines, they did a really good job back in April. Like that funding was really successful. Like
Yeah.
it made those cold times were so short. and then we've talked about some of the technological advancements that they've been going through, and some of how getting in and getting around is easier. Which
Well,
anytime,
being able to submit a 2848, for those of you that aren't in the IRS world, that is the power of attorney that we
oh yeah,
use, that we have to have in order to speak to the IRS on your behalf. So being able to submit that is one thing. Being able to look at the accounts that you have in your central authorization file, that's your CAF, and be able to do that, and then with a click of a button revoke it, so we no longer have access to those accounts. It's made it so much easier. In the past, you had to file a Freedom of Information Act request to get a list of who you had a power of attorney over, and
wow,
then pay for that list, wait for it to come via U.S. mail, because it was a paper list, and do that. Now it's easy, and the IRS requests information. We can now upload those documents. It's no more
yeah,
waiting by the fax machine for 30 minutes for it to go through. We
yeah,
still have to do that if we're on the phone with the agent, and still have to fax it in. But
sure.
it's amazing what we can do now compared to what we could do 5 years ago.
Yeah. So let's hope that maybe this is some additional posturing, and that the 20 billion, at least a good portion of that, will actually stay there with the IRS. I also read an article. Yeah, fingers crossed. I also read an article that the direct file adoption is continuing to expected to grow. We talked about that before, so this is just a reiteration of that historical information. But that direct file is a good thing, and just allows people to be able to seamlessly and easily get their taxes resolved, right, to file them, right. This is
Yep.
a great thing for taxpayers. So
Now that's
anytime
what you
that's easy.
used last year, correct?
No,
No,
I
you
don't think
direct
so.
file or use
I don't.
something
I
with the
used
IRS.
yeah, I used the free fillable forms
Okay.
through something. I
Okay.
When we get back to it this year,
It
I'll
wasn't the same
make a
thing.
better
Okay.
record.
Gotcha. 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 Gotcha.
But I don't. It was not. I don't believe it was direct file, but it may have been.
Okay.
But it may
Yeah.
have been.
Okay.
I don't even remember clearly.
It's all
Um,
good.
no, it must be. Must be. And
So
Jay,
that you just reminded me, though. I mean, here in Florida, we are good till May to get our
yeah.
returns done. I actually filed mine on Saturday before the system shut down.
Oh, look at you go!
Yes.
Look at you go!
Well, it hit me that last year, all of the financial aid was delayed because of changes in the education department.
Oh,
So you couldn't do your FAFSA form, which is the free application for financial whatever,
yes,
whatever my kid
sure.
needs to get her financial
Student aid or
aid
something.
done. And so you couldn't start filing it until February. Well, it's open now, and I saw that. It's like, oh crap, I got to do that so we can make sure that she does what she needs to do.
Right.
So got that in. I'll give it a week and then tell her to go ahead and do it. So
There you
yeah.
go. That's good. That's good
So
planning.
I ended up having to amend my escort, my wife's escort, because as any busy tax professional, didn't quite have it done. So got those done and then filed the 1040.
Nice.
So yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. So, did you direct file?
I did not. I used one of those professional softwares that we like to
There you go.
use.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. 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 All right, Ned. That was the tax news. Unless, of course, Jay, I missed something.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But,
a slow week.
the thing about the tax news is now, I mean, I had 3 calls today. 3 people asked me, what's going on with taxes now?
Yeah,
So now that we're getting there, everybody wants to know what's going on.
that's right. So
Yeah.
it is an important time to look at that, and of course, there are lots of speculation about what could happen in the next administration. And as a reminder, we will be right here speculating along with people as we hear and see more. So we'll see what comes next. In accounting related news, in the PE financing corner, I feel like this is the third week in a row now that we were talking about PE related stuff. UHY got some funding this week from Summit Partners, which is a name that I recognize. They're pretty pretty good sized PE firm, I believe. And then I read two separate articles, or saw two separate articles around the positive impacts of PE. And so I thought that this was really interesting to me because it highlights for me, like, just like AI, where we've got, the AI corner and the, tech check in with tech, like P's not going anywhere. And sure, it may be, every once in a while there may be ups and downs in whether or not you can get the right amount of funding that you need, but you need to understand that this is an option for your firm, and there are lots of firms that are doing it, and there are lots of reasons why it can be successful for you. And so we'll want to continue to highlight again that PE funding is happening. And if you haven't already, and maybe we will talk about this in a future episode or something, we'll talk through the different reasons why it can be valuable, and how it can help to potentially, like, turn your firm into the firm you have been meaning for it to be, but couldn't because you didn't quite have enough money. So know that PE is out there. Know that PE is going to continue to be out there, and there are definitely lots of positives around private equity investment. So
Kind of sounds like AI, like you said, the AI
that's right.
corner. I mean,
That's exactly right.
it's the same thing. It's out there.
Yeah, people are doing it all the time, and it's just going to be, if anything, it will continue to be more prevalent as somebody has success, right? So anytime those PE ventures become successful, then it's like, oh yeah, okay, you're right. Maybe that is a spot to invest. And if you think about like a true accounting firm model, like you know exactly what the top line is. You have a pretty set cash flow at the bottom. You can pretty comfortably know what that margin is going to look like.
For sure.
And if you can either turn that a little bit into investment in some way, right, or give back that return, like, it's going to be appealing. So it's not surprising, and it's just something to continue to monitor. And then I think, if that is something that you end up choosing to do, like, you just need to understand the implications, both the positive ones and the potential negative ones, because there are definitely both. But well planned, well thought out, well designed and strategic private equity investment can be super beneficial to a firm. So it's going to keep happening. It's like AI. I also saw that our friends at the FASB, they are proposing an update around credit losses. And so those of you who may not be all the way up to speed on GAAP accounting, it was not that long ago now, but it's been a couple years since CECL, the allowance for credit losses accounting, I think it's 323, became effective. And so it sounds like they're doing a little bit of tidying up around how that gets implemented. That particular standard was surprisingly challenging to implement if it was something that applied to you, and it applied to more people than thought it applied to. So it became a little bit more difficult and cumbersome to do. And so I think that at least from what I read at the highest level here, and I did not go into the actual like ASU exposure draft or whatever, or proposal or whatever it is, but I think the intention is to simplify it a little bit, make it a little easier to manage. And of course, anytime the FASB is doing that, that is a good thing. So assuming that that's what it is, good job by you, FASB. And if it's not that, then get better, FASB. And if you can believe it, Jay, that was it. That's it. That's the accounting news today. That's it. That's all we got.
PCAOB? Come on now.
No, the PCAOB did get in the news, but I didn't think it was really all that relevant. They hand slapped somebody. They hand slapped somebody and put some regulations down on someone who was a name I didn't recognize, and for a pretty regular like hand slapping thing. Like, so they slapped somebody's hand. So the PCAOB wasn't they made somebody's Thanksgiving really bad, but it looked like the guy deserved it. He had done some nefariouses and got in trouble for it. So oops.
Stop doing nefariouses. That's all.
Yeah, don't do the nefariouses. That's not a good long-term strategy, especially with the PCAOB. So anyway, that they were out there, but they didn't make the news because, like, hey, bad guy did bad thing, got busted. Oops.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
in tech news, there wasn't all that much tech news either, Jay. But here we go. Iris, and at least that's what I think it's called.
Yeah.
Iris acquired Dext. Um,
Well, they intend to
oh, excuse me.
acquire Dext.
Iris is going to probably
Yes.
acquire Dext.
Yes.
It was looked like it was a or a half a billion pounds, which is that
Yeah.
was what kind of number is that? That's a big number.
Yeah.
Um, and and what I learned in doing a little bit of reading around this is that both Iris and Dex had a little bit of private equity funding from HG
Hmm.
Capital, and now HG Capital has its hands in a whole lot of different things in the accounting space.
Yep.
They're like the Intuit of accounting that you've never heard of, because they have a set of resources across all kinds of different things that you can do in the accounting area.
Now,
And
Chris,
this
I read that Iris is mostly in the UK, Australia, and other parts of the world, not in the US. So, is there an
Yeah.
impact to us here with that,
Well, I know
other
that.
than the fact that a lot of people in the US do use Dext?
Right. Well, and I do think that that's part of it, right? Is I think that if you think about the strategic play that's happening there,
Yeah.
it becomes like an entry point
Right.
into the U.S. potentially. I didn't read anything about the strategy behind this
Yeah.
particular merger, except that it gave. I think Iris and Dex do different things in the accounting space, and they are complementary things.
Right.
And so because of that, they're like, hey, we got this opportunity to expand our product offering,
Right.
which probably goes to expanding Dex out more worldwide as well.
Yeah. My
Um,
initial looky loo at Iris is basically they have a GL for the UK, they have
yeah,
payroll, and other ancillary software. So,
yeah,
I think they could possibly get in the US, but I mean,
yeah, good
IFRS
start.
versus GAAP and, some other issues there, but I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be doable.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we've talked about this several times, right? Having extra alternatives is never a bad thing because they stimulate innovation, they stimulate change, and they allow for the best and brightest features of any of those different products
Right.
to respectfully be stolen, um,
Yeah.
or or copied or whatever you would call that, right? Of
Yes.
you're doing this, I'm going to do that too. That's a great idea. Let's all do that. Let's all do
Thank you
that
for
good
doing
thing.
the research. Now we'll do the
That's right.
development.
Yes, that's correct. Absolutely. So that was a really big transaction number for sure,
Yeah.
and feels like it's the start of something that could potentially be big. But I think time will tell more than anything,
Yeah.
especially as they start to disclose a little bit more of what their intention was. The I when I went to ZeroCon this year, I was thinking about my daughter a lot, because I was not,
Skunk.
I wasn't at home with her, right? And so I got her a giraffe and a translucent skunk. And the folks at Translucent, my daughter loves the skunk, and the folks at Translucent are releasing 3 new tools. They're adding some tracking categories, some data dimensions, and also some permission updates, to their platform. So a nice little improvements there, to continue to make their product even better. So I wanted to highlight that here, mostly because the skunk story is a fun one, um, and then because they're doing some like new stuff. Translation is a multi-entity tool, so being able to summarize and see things across that area becomes really really valuable.
Yeah, and it's funny that you would talk about translucent right after Dext because I
Yeah.
think the founder of Dext is the founder of translucent.
Oh, is that right? Really? I
Yes,
didn't know
I'm,
that.
I'm, I'm,
That's really funny.
it's either the CTO or the founder, and yeah, so
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Definitely.
Uh, so anyway, Translucent, thanks again for the skunk, and thanks for improving your product by adding these new features to it. So look out for that, especially if you have multiple entities that need to get consolidated together. Translucent is a good option in that area. And then finally, in the what's happening in AI? I already mentioned it. Gov.uk. We got some government bots now, so. Uh, so again, maybe that doesn't impact us that much, but maybe that's where that 20 billion could go, is an IRS bot. But anyway, there wasn't a whole lot of AI news this week, but again, that I thought was an interesting one. Government utilization of AI technology
Yeah.
is how you know we're really plateauing, Jay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's the news. That's the news. And so then, Jay, as we head into the end of the year here, it's our last chance to get ready for 2025 the right way. Today, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the things we're doing here at High Rock, and run through things that you should also be considering. And so, I think the best way to talk about that is to get right to that. And so, with respect to that, one of the things that we've been working on for what feels like 2 years now is continuing to ensure that we have all of the information that we need in order to support vendor management and the 1099 process. And so, of course, if you're out there and you support your customers and your clients in filing 1099s, there's a lot of information that goes around that process, and a lot of information that you have to have. The 1099 deadline is at the end of January, and so that puts that in a very narrow window, which means that you have to be ready for it by the end of the year. And it's based on all of the end of year transactions. So it's transactions from January 1 to December 31st. And the threshold is really low. So that threshold is only $600. So if you're paying vendors for services that are $600 or more, there needs to be some consideration taken to whether or not a 1099 needs to be prepared for those people. And for some reason, and this part I haven't really figured out, Jay, but the IRS has put the burden of that reporting on the payer instead of the
Yeah.
payee, which is annoying, but it is the way that the rules are. And so because of that, you have to do your part to make sure that you're doing this right. And so what that means is that you need to do a few different things before we get to the end of the year here, and you have a little bit of time still, about a month, to help yourself manage that process. With respect to that, one of the most important things to do is identify vendors that are either relatively new, like you didn't use them previously and you don't have any of their older records on file, and especially those that you've paid $600 or more to. For those types of vendors, you want to get a W-9, right? If you don't know what a W-9 is, it's basically withholding form. It's a summary form for that vendor that identifies for you whether or not the vendor needs that 1099 because they are an individual or a sole proprietorship or someone like this, or whether a 1099 would be lost on that vendor because of the way that their financial reporting is, because they're a C Corp or something of that nature. And so utilizing this W-9 helps you as the service provider to be able to say, yeah, you need this one and you need that one, but you don't need these guys because they're this type of entity. And so being able to take the time to be ready to go when it comes to 1099 filing can be really important, because that timeline at the end of the year is so compressed. Like I said, we've been doing that for a couple of years now. We've tried to implement that into a monthly closing process to make sure that new vendors that get flagged, that they get followed up with. Our friends at Keeper, who we've started to implement now as well, have a couple different parts of their 1099 process that are right there in the tool. And so finding the right partner to help you support this can also be really important and really valuable. Jay, do you have any other thoughts on 1099 getting ready?
Yeah, I do. And ultimately, what we need to do as advisors is advise our clients not to pay a vendor that has not given them a W-9. That is the only way
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get it when they're being non-compliant. And it
Yep.
was one of the earliest automations I ever did.
Oh yeah.
You have a new vendor in Zero. Well, guess what? They're going to get W-9 email to them. So that was done, way back when. But now we have tools like Keeper, and Zero has the built-in W9 tool. And
Right.
I really love what Zero did with that tool. It made it super easy. But using Keeper, which works with both QuickBooks and Zero, you know, now you have one single process to do it. It makes it so much easier to do it that way. And it actually puts that information right into Zero for you. And, it saves it for you. And you can actually, I believe you can actually file them directly from Keeper as well.
Yeah, that's my understanding
So,
too, right? That
yeah,
they can be connected directly to other tools,
most
or you can
definitely.
just like, kick them out from there.
But the
Nice.
other piece of information that I want to pass on is, you advise your clients. The other thing that I advise them, just pay them with PayPal. They will then get a
Just
1099K, and you
use a
won't have to
credit
worry
card.
about it. So, there you go.
Yeah, and that can be like a really powerful point of advice,
Yeah,
especially if it's someone who you're going to pay $650 and you're going
yeah,
to pay one time, and you're probably not going back
yeah,
to them again. It's a one-off repair or
yeah.
something, right?
Use an
Um,
electronic payment system that tracks it, and either you'll get a 1099K from your merchant processing, or you'll get it
right.
from your or PayPal. So there you
That's
go.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. So as we get to the end of the year, too, another thing that becomes really important is quality control and oversight. So you want to make sure that you evaluate the processes that you're doing on a regular basis to understand like how effective they are being, right? Whether they're being done correctly, whether the people that are on your team are executing things in the right way. You probably want to spend this time to have the conversation with your team of, are templates working? Do you like the way that they're going? Do you like the functionality of them? Because the best opportunity to introduce additional efficiency or introduce that kind of change is right now. And you can't do that without at least having those types of conversations and preparing for that oversight. And so I know our team is using this last little part of the year to do exactly that, to think through what is it that we're working on, what do we like, what do we not like, what should we be doing on across the firm, so that we just have full on consistency in both the execution and the delivery of the product that we're doing. Jay, do you have any extra thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, it's more than just QC. I mean, we're also, and like you said, looking at the processes and workflow, but it's, are we finding roadblocks? Can we find our way around those roadblocks to make it easier on us and on the clients to make sure that we are delivering the right service and at an efficient method, or using efficient methods to do so. So it also opens up ways to build in automations in your workflow so that we are pulling out that human element to make sure that things are being done correctly. So anything with data entry that we can automate, we want to automate so that we know it's being done consistently and right the way it's intended to. And the biggest advice I can say there is, if you do find you have roadblocks or potholes or obstacles in your process, make sure you solve those first before you install any technology or automation, because the only thing you're going to speed up is the route to the roadblock. So,
Right.
yeah, that, if I can give you that piece of advice, that is it.
Yeah. And so I do think like you talked about automating things. Again, this is the best time of year to have those conversations around what can be automated, how can we automate it, and are there underlying problems? So exactly like Jay talked about.
Yep.
Um, one other big project that we're working on, because we're heading into January, is an engagement letter review. That engagement letter review includes a lot of different things. So for the first layer of that engagement letter review is actually has nothing to do with the engagement letter itself. It's an evaluation of how you're doing on the different jobs you're executing. So that the way that I would describe that is a scope review. How are you executing toward what you said you were going to execute, and how profitable is that execution? So generally like how much headcount you're using, right? And of course there's a lot of discussion out there around like, should you monitor time? Does it even matter? From our perspective, I think that it does, and the reason that I feel that way is a couple fold. The first reason is that it highlights for you how much capacity your team has in a relatively real way, right? People can say they are at capacity pretty comfortably, whether they are or not, and knowing how much working volume and how much like dollar generation volume that you have on your teammates can be really really important for evaluating how your business is running. And so I do think from just like how profitable you are, like measuring this is an important metric. The second is like you also get highlights of opportunities where either the process itself is inefficient, or potentially alternatively, the process itself is really efficient, and you have an opportunity to either train someone or to do some of that stealing that we talked about before, where you copy whatever it is that you're doing in one spot and use it somewhere else because it's been so effective. It can also highlight for you potential areas where maybe your team is not doing everything that they should be doing, which circles back to quality control to some degree. But it also helps you to know, like, are we executing everything we need to be executing? And that is a really valuable thing to review. And so you start with that, right? Is what my team is doing, what we were engaged to do, and are there any gaps either direction? Like, are we doing things that we weren't actually engaged to do, but somebody once upon a time said, you know what, that's a really important thing that needs to get done, and I'm going to go ahead and do that, and it just never gets built into an engagement. That's something that you want to review, because you want to make sure that you're being compensated for all the work that you're doing and all the help that you're providing. Um, Doing that at this time of year is typically a great time, because people are looking at the next year and trying to understand how much it's going to cost and everything else. So you fit right into people's budgetary processes and all that kind of stuff. And so it can be really important to start the year off right. Um, the next layer of looking at that profitability is exactly what I talked about, right? You want to make sure that you're being engaged for what your client needs. That will often involve a conversation with your clients. That will often indicate for you, like, hey, here's this thing that we know that you also want to do, and maybe now is the time to have that conversation around, hey, are you ready to do that? We've talked about doing this particular thing for you for a while now. Do you need some help with that now? Is it time? So anytime that you're revisiting those engagement letters, it's a good time to be able to do that, and just to have that additional check-in point with how are you feeling with what we're providing, and is there anything that we do that you could use help with too? You'd be surprised at how effective that can be in generating new business. Sometimes it's just a little conversation that you need to have that can go a long way. And then of course, like, the last layer is like updating your engagement letters. Like, it's there. There had been a really long time, I think, in the marketplace where the price was just what the price was, and it stayed that way forever, and people never really revisited it. Like, you should not be doing that. The cost of your people is going up. The cost of the technology that you're using is going up. Their costs all across the board are increasing, and it's only appropriate to ask for compensation for that as well. And so you should definitely consider like a an increase in your overall rates across your client base, and this is the time to do that. Jay, what did I miss in this conversation about rescoping and reviewing your engagements that you think would be important?
All right, so jumping back to when you started talking about this, you were talking about tracking your time so
Oh
you could
yeah,
check for scope creep and things like that. Well, there's
yep,
another part of that. So by looking at how many hours you are using effectively, we also know what your capacity is to take on more clients.
right,
And that is almost just as important as the hours that you've used, because as we are talking to prospective clients, we need to know that we have the team in place to bring them on and service them. So
right,
if we cannot calculate our capacity correctly, we bring on a client, well, we might be doomed before we even get started. So it's
right.
really important to track that and know exactly what capacity you have. So you bring that client on and you basically, it's a formula. You need to know that based on this information, we're going to bring in these clients and this is the amount of hours we're going to need.
Yep. And that goes even farther out than just right now,
Right.
because once you've done that, right now that starts to give you indicators and pointers of, hey, the next person that we bring on is going to push this person just over, and we don't have anywhere else to put that work. And so because of that, maybe it's time to start looking for another resource or adding them
Yeah,
into
you
the
have to be
team.
forward thinking with it because think about
That's
the
right.
time it takes to bring somebody in, get them trained, get them up and running. It could,
That doesn't happen overnight, Jay.
realistically, I mean, you or I can jump in there and do it overnight, but there are people, it takes them some time. They got to learn the process. Just,
Yeah.
just throw me in the zero. I'll figure it out. But,
Yeah.
I'm good there. So, I could backwards engineer things and reverse engineer things and figure it out. But, some people, they need the guidance and
Right.
we need to plan. And that's why it's so important. And that's why you build forecasts, based on our goals for 2025, we are going to bring in X clients each quarter. And based on that information, we know based on current capacity that we are
Yeah.
going to need to bring in people at certain intervals. And we want to bring them in just a little bit ahead of the need so that we can get them up to speed and just bring them in and roll right through it. And if you
Right.
do that, 2025 is going to be a great year.
That's absolutely right, and that's the plan. Of course, is that's
Yeah.
why it takes a little bit of effort right now to set a plan in place to be able to achieve those things, right? So if you don't already have a 2025 plan, I think that's going to be one of the last things that we would say is understand where your business is headed in 2025, where you want to go, what your goals are. And so that may be as simple as using your own advisory services on yourself.
Right.
So doing
Exactly.
preparing a budget for yourself, for your firm or your company, and making sure that you understand what is my expectation for 2025, what do I want it to be, and what steps do I need to take between now and then to achieve those goals. Because if you want a lot of growth, there are other things you're going to have to do too.
For sure.
And if you want to focus a little bit more on a certain client set, there's things that you're going to need to do around that as well. If you want to trim some of the clients that you don't really care for all that much anymore, because they haven't grown at the same pace as you have, or the service that you're providing them isn't one that you want to continue to focus on, right? This is the time to evaluate that so that you give everyone involved enough time to make the right decisions for them.
Actually, when it comes to that, that should be a year-round decision.
Yeah,
You might want to do it at one point of the year, but
right.
you want to keep in mind that you want A and B type clients, and the C and D clients are taking up too much of your time. So those are the ones you want to prune off. Now, when I say that these clients are A's and B's and these are C's and D's, for different firms, that means something very different
That's right.
because different firms are structured differently with different models. And what is a C or D to Hyrock could be an A to somebody else. So
Yeah.
it's not that they're bad clients; it just doesn't fit our mode of
Right.
operation. So
That's right.
it's they're all good clients. It's just a matter of how they fit for you at that given time.
That's right. Yeah, and so I do think like spending some time to do some projection is really important, and that goes across all of the different aspects of your business,
Yep.
not just costs, but also revenues, and where you want those to be focused, and how you want them to be that product mix, right? Do you want to focus on a certain type of folk, like a niching thing, or a certain type of service? Those things can all be really important in making sure that you're going into 2025 successfully. Um,
And we talked about engagements, and so we're mostly talking about accounting and advisory clients. But
right.
this is the time to be ramping up your tax engagement letters as well, because the
Yep.
quicker you get those out and signed, the quicker you can start your process and get that process rolling. Because I mean, you turn around and March 15th is here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you spend the entire month of January on 1099s, and then, oh, wow, we got it. We got to do the pass-through entities. Let's get those done.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there, it's May 15th already, March 15th already, and it's like, wow, it's already here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and so that can go really quickly. So definitely worth taking the time now to evaluate where you're going to be then. That is that's I think that's probably one of the biggest keys that you can take away overall from this conversation today is take the time now to think about where you're going to be then, so that you can plan appropriately. Jay, are there any other high level things that we're working on at High Rock that I forgot to include in here as kind of some of our year end process?
Well, we're doing some of it right now, but it's always an ongoing process with
Yeah.
reviewing technology and making
Mm.
upgrades. And so we're looking at a number of different things right now to make things more efficient. And
Yeah.
even if it is efficient, the technology is changing so quickly, and what was efficient last year might not be efficient today. So
Yeah.
it's doing a review of your technology, making sure that those technology vendors know that you are doing that because you might have some feedback to help them, maybe make it more efficient, add some more
Yeah.
features. Hey, that app does this. Why are you not doing that? And you have it's kind of a little game. Hey, I will go over to that app if you don't do this. And for the most part, you're not going to jump over a feature or two. But I mean, if it's a full feature set, yeah, I mean, I can see that. But
Yeah.
at some point, you have those conversations with your vendors, and you know what they are doing, you know what their competitors are doing, and try to check out the roadmaps of both of them and see where that stands, so that
Right.
know where things are moving in that direction. So
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really important thing to do. Any other final getting ready for the end of the year advice, Jay?
yes, make sure you take your holiday. Get that break in, recharge the batteries, because as we said months ago, burnout is a real thing. And by prepping yourself over the holidays, you know, take some downtime, spend time with the family, get things ready. And that way you come back in January, you're refreshed, you're ready to go. You kick the door down, you get going, and you just
Yep.
roll with it at that point. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's lovely advice. It is so important to remember to take the time to enjoy the life that you have. There that especially we just talked about that, right? This was Thanksgiving,
Yep.
so it's time to
Yep.
be thankful, and heading into this holiday season is another time for exactly that.
Yep.
Make sure
For
that you're
sure.
taking that time to support yourself, so that you can go out and support your business into 2025. Absolutely, that's excellent advice, Jay. Um, Jay, did you over the holiday? Did you work on any fancy automations? I know we haven't really talked about it, so I don't know if we've got an automation of the week this week.
Actually, we do.
Let's go. Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I wrote an automation for my wife's business
All right.
where you post a blog to YouTube. I mean, excuse me, you post a blog to WordPress,
Hmm.
and it then triggers an automation where that blog information is read and saved in an Airtable database. So it pulls down the blog text, pulls in the featured image, and then uses ChatGPT to summarize that blog post. And this particular one would also then take the summary, write a LinkedIn post, and post it.
No,
So I'm
yeah.
like, what if I wanted to post it on Facebook and also on X? So
Hmm.
it's like very different. So what I did
Yeah.
was I changed it up a little bit and set it so that you could put in the different channels that you wanted to post to and then
Ooh.
generate your content. So then, based on your channel, it's going to write a 280 character post,
Yeah.
maybe sometimes 281 characters, 290 characters, and basically built in an approval process where you can actually go in and review your posts, make those
Yeah.
edits in case it is a little too long, and make sure it's your voice and all those things, and
Right.
then click post, and boom, it posts to those channels. Uh, and so it was a good quick one that got done there, and
Yeah.
now as I was doing it, came up with some other ideas which I've kind of forgotten about right now. But when I go back to it, they pop back into my head. Yeah,
Right.
some other enhancements to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, just using the AI to write those social posts and then post them. Yeah, it saves a lot of time.
Yeah. There's no
And
question that that's true.
yeah,
Yeah. And
so the next couple that I'm going to be working on revolve around YouTube videos, kind of like this one.
oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, more to come
Yeah.
there
We'll be excited to see that automation in the next week or two.
for
So
sure.
that's the automation of the week. Use the AI tools out there to help you to turn some content into lots of content, which can be really great. Marketing, I think, is an area where we've talked about like the execution and utilization of AI in that space can be super helpful for you. And as we've talked about on the e-commerce hour, as the tools continue to improve, like they're just making it easier and easier to do that. I'm excited to see where that automation goes going forward because I know
For sure.
you're only scratching the surface um, with that. So exciting automation. Uh,
Most
we
definitely.
will we will be back next week to talk about whatever we talk about next week. We don't have a plan yet, but we'll get one. And 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 who knows? The first week of December, now that everybody's all of turkey fool or whatnot, maybe their writing pens are going to get back out, and we'll have loads and loads of news. But regardless of whether we do or not, we'll be here to talk about whatever does come up and help you to be your best self as we go into the next year. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for spending time with us today, and we'll see you in the next one.
Have a great week,
Bye,
everybody. I'll see you next
everyone.
week. See ya.